or I guess let's go specifically to that water account. So we estimated that water account is going to spend around $350,000 a year. And so what we wanted to do, what we always do with these agreements, is ensure that we're leaving a good enough buffer so that we never give you too many credits to pay.
So you did the calculation on dollars rather than kilowatts?
That's correct, yeah. So what we typically will look at an electric account and estimate, using the rate information that we have from National Grid, how much does this account spend per year? And then we do the same thing from our project. So we say, this many kilowatt hours are going to be produced. How much is that worth? And so we match up the dollars. That's how we like to think about it. So both of these accounts that we're targeting, the wastewater plant and the water main, the water main account, we're basically targeting it such that we give enough credits so that we're covering about 87.5% of the costs at each account. And that leaves, give or take over $100,000 between the two accounts of expenditure that's not going to be covered by these net metering credits, but it gives the city an opportunity. This is one of the big reasons we do this, is it gives the city an opportunity, to pursue additional energy efficiency measures. If they're interested in doing that, we don't want to sort of work against that goal of saving money in general.
So in doing that calculation, you picked a period, you froze a period in time to look at the number of dollars. Am I correct in that?
That's correct, yeah. We look at the last 12 months of electricity statements.
And in the last 12 months, electricity has risen substantially. No, the city's been on a fixed cost. So you're using a fixed price per kilowatt.
Yeah, so the way that, what we do is we use the, information right off the electric bill from the city in order to calculate those costs. So we'll use, I think you're probably referring to the supply rate. So that, was fixed for that period of time. In addition, there's the supply and then there's the delivery portion of the bill. And so those delivery rates are, set by the utility, but we have, many years of history that we're drawing on. We feel pretty confident in the projections we're making.
Moving along, back out on page 7, we're talking about governmental charges in section 5.5, where the seller is responsible for governmental charges attributed to the sale of energy and net metering credits. If the tax law changes, this governmental charge section could change. Is that correct?
I believe so, as in if there's some decision to tax net metering credits in some fashion. Yep. So I believe so. One thing to note on that is that net metering changes in general, specifically in regards to projects that would be grandfathered in this state and across the country, have been very poorly looked upon and often reversed when those decisions are made. So I would say that it's very unlikely in that scenario that additional tax charges would be applied to the net metering credits on a project that's going.
But am I correct in reading this in that if the Commonwealth of Massachusetts or the federal government decides to tax net metering credits, the City of Attleboro Water and Wastewater Department would be responsible for those charges?
It would factor into the, savings or lack thereof, yes. At
100%?
I believe so, yeah. I mean, it's not something that we're anticipating, but yeah.
And this may be my last question, but on page 8, on representation, warranties, and covenants under 7.2, could you please explain to me what is meant by that forward contract term?
Sure. So, I wouldn't be able to explain all the implications, but essentially the forward contract term is just implying that, you're looking at the energy future, so sort of like the energy that's going to be produced in the next period, essentially, as I understand it, unless Joe has a better explanation for me.
That's my understanding as well. We're talking about energy that's going to be produced once the project's live. So by definition, it's a forward-looking contract. But the way that we structure it is with a fixed discount, so that regardless of how the net metering rate changes, how the national grid rate changes, you're always guaranteed that fixed 20% discount.
Got it. I think that completes the questions that I had, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Council Parika.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson.
You're welcome.
Good evening, gentlemen. Thank you for coming in tonight. I'm pretty excited about this contract. I have acquaintances that deal in solar on a regular basis, so I sent the contract to them for them to review, expecting for it to come back and be like, oh, well, they missed this, or they didn't do this, or whatever. It's a good contract. I'm happy, very, very happy to support this. There was discussion many years ago about building a solar farm here in the city that would have generated significantly more money, but now, that's progress. Like, solar is common and commonplace now. I think I was kind of chuckling a little bit, Mr. Conti, when you said that, in the event that a meteor comes and hits the solar farm, I think we have bigger things to worry about than the net metering credits that would be coming back. I guess my question would be, is there the potential, so I'm looking forward to it. I'm hopeful that at some point the city of Attleboro might be able to create some of our own to help offset some of the costs to our own buildings here as well and our residents. It's solar is fast moving and very exciting. My question would be, is there the potential for us to renegotiate this contract as we move along at any given point?
Excuse me. So what I would say is that, I don't know if there's a specific clause that provides for that, other than if there's a scenario where there's a drastic reduction in electricity spending. I guess this would be one scenario in which you may want to renegotiate. Say the buffer that we left for the wastewater plant wasn't enough, and suddenly you're in a situation where you're receiving too many net metering credits. The spending has gone down enough. That's again something that we don't want that to happen. We own our projects, we operate them, we have an in-house asset management team, and so we look at this as something, you're entering into a contract for 20 years, but so are we, and so we really want to help our clients save the most money they can. So that's something where on a case-by-case basis, we'd evaluate and try to work with the city to see, are there other electric accounts that could take some of these credits? Or is there a neighboring municipality that hasn't been able to take advantage of net metering and they have some appetite? That's not a scenario where we would, put our foot in the ground. We'd try to work with you and make sure that, everyone's happy.
Terrific. And maybe you could explain just a little bit more why it's prudent for us to have that buffer in between. I understand it just because of the rebate. I mean, every year, every quarter, there's different electrical rebates and different things that come out that are sponsored either by the state or different electrical service providers and things like that. But you might want to just kind of explain why you want that buffer in there, where it might sound to some that we're giving up on the ability to save even more, or that we should increase that 33%, but there's a specific reason why you want to leave that.
Yeah, so part of it was, in general, the reason that we leave that buffer, it usually makes our clients feel a little bit more comfortable, because they often say, as you were saying, cities and towns are constantly looking at ways to save money in different places, and one of the sort of low-hanging fruit in that sense has been energy efficiency in large municipal buildings. And so that's the big reason we leave that buffer, so that just because, so we don't want to incentivize you to keep your costs the same necessarily. If you find a way that it makes sense for the city to reduce the costs, reduce the electricity costs at the wastewater plant or the water account, we want to make sure that you feel comfortable and you feel good about doing that. We don't want this contract to impede, energy efficiency measures that the city might undertake. So because, not 100% of the spending is covered on each one of those accounts, you do have that wiggle room where if you can find a way to reduce the costs, you can still benefit, and you won't, put yourself in a position where the city has caused itself to be spending less than the net metering credits provided to that account in a given year. That's our main concern. Yeah.
If I may,
Please.
it's the by bringing in solar and utilizing the net metering credits, the ultimate goal is to increase energy efficiency. So you don't want to take that, if I could paraphrase a little bit there for you.
yeah.
You don't want to take away, we want to reduce our carbon footprint and reduce our energy usage.
Right.
And so we don't want to take that motivating factor for us to be able to take advantage of other programs that may come along to help reduce the cost of the energy for water and wastewater.
Yep, I think
Would that be
you said
correct?
it. I think you said it right there.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Please, Council Cooper.
Thank you. Just a couple of quick questions. Can you be a little bit more specific about where in Seekonk these farms will be located?
Yep, so they're located on 68 Woodside Ave, I believe. Let's see. 68 Woodland Ave, excuse me. 68 Woodland Ave. They are, so as I mentioned, it's 3 separate parcels. In total, they make up a facility that's around 6.8 megawatts. And it's located on an unused, gravel and rock stone quarry right there. So the land hadn't been used to its potential in quite some time. But yeah, so.
If I may
Please.
just have a few follow-up questions. The town of Seekonk, you've gone through the process with the town of Seekonk to get the approvals to build this?
Yeah, that's correct. So we've got all the local and state permits in hand. We have a completed interconnection application and an impact study from National Grid. It's good to go. Basically, the last remaining step before we go to our financiers to just get the construction loan and start building the project is securing 100% of the offtake. Everything else is good to go.
And can you be a little more specific about your construction commencement date?
So construction commencement is probably so that's sort of dependent on when we finish 100% of the project. So 100% of the, once we assign 100% of the net metering credits of the project,
So I won't hold you to it if you say approximately or around.
Yep, and so we expect it to be in the next 2 months.
Okay. You mentioned financing, so does your financing in these types of things depend on this agreement being executed with the city or other, and are there other cities reaping the benefit of that farm? If so, who?
Yes, so we do use our net metering credit agreements, the strength of those agreements to finance and, the certainty that we're going to be receiving the revenue for 20 years. Right now, we also have the Somerset Berkeley Regional School District signed up, and we've been talking with a bunch of other towns in the area, smaller towns basically that should make up the remainder of the city. We haven't signed contracts with them yet, but we're very close, and as you know, the city being a part of any agreement sort of, gives it that stamp of approval for some of the other small towns around here. But, we expect to complete that. We expect to complete the offtake within, again, the next couple weeks with a few other towns around the area.
And I think it's more of a comment than a question, but I think by reading this that we are a government authority based on the definition on page 23. So I think that we are, it says local government, means any national, state, or local government. I don't know if that necessarily means the mayor or us, but we could potentially clarify that. And that's it. That concludes my comments. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
If I could ride on Councilor Cooper's comments.
Sure.
This is an important issue that I think you should ask the president to ask the city solicitor to determine whether or not we, in addition or instead of or not with the mayor, have the authority to modify the agreement under section 4.3.
So I guess I just asked
I think we want to know.
Sorry about that. I'd have to clarify. So what exactly is the concern around the city being designated as a local governmental authority?
It's a 20-year agreement. 240 months is a very long time. Things change. Things change in your company, things change in the city. And the government should have the ability to modify the agreement with those changes as they occur.
Council Hall.
I'll defer to Mr. Cooper if it's a follow-up question here.
It's just simply, I think that the mayor is certainly covered under governmental based on the definition, and I know that, you know, we can't enter into the contract. We could certainly ask him to take it on, but I would be helpful to understand if that includes
Okay.
the approval of any changes to this contract would have to come before this council. Is important for me to understand, Kate.
Okay,
It's so
great.
helpful, thank you.
Now, if I may, Mr. Chair?
Yes, please.
May I
Go ahead,
continue?
Council
Thank you.
Hall.
Thank
You're
you so
welcome.
much. Thank you. So is this, I'm looking, this is under the topic of experience, okay, with this particular type of business. Do you have any statistical experience that you could show me, either with your own company or another company of this sort, as to, you know, over time, how this has gone? In other words, I mean, do you have other accounts that you've had going for quite some time? Thank you, that's what I think I'm asking.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, I must not have mentioned it before. So we've done, you know, essentially the exact same deal with over 30 municipalities, across the state, and that's just limited to public entities. So we've also done deals with school districts, private universities, Wheaton College, for example, just as one close to home, Worcester Polytech, City of Worcester. So we do have you know, quite some experience. Yeah.
And so, for the most part, has it worked? Has it been positive for the municipalities that you've?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I mean, we have. So, you know, I mentioned City of Worcester is one of our clients. I believe the smallest municipal client we have doing this kind of a deal is the town of Dunstable. So, you know, from that broad range, we have seen really positive experiences. And it's not just our company, and it's not just Worcester and Dunstable. I think you would find that, you know, you do some searching on the internet or look into a few of the other companies around here. But you know, just if you wanted to reaffirm for yourself. But in general, from our perspective, it's gone really well, and we've been happy with our municipal clients, and yeah, they you know, we've re-upped with many of them to cover additional needs as the years have gone by.
Perfect. And so I think any way that we can start looking at alternative energy sources is a good thing, as far as I'm concerned. So I agree with Councilor Parikh. So I think that's awesome. You did mention something at the beginning, though. You said that there were no upfront capital funds that need to be expended. Is there ever a point where we would have to expend capital funds?
Nope.
Good answer.
You're gonna see the benefit before you'll have to pay a dime for it.
Before we what?
So you're basically no upfront expenditure. You're gonna see the credit on your utility bill, and then we'll invoice after at that 20% discount. So
Okay.
the city's always gonna save money first.
Okay, great. Thank you.
That's what we're all about, saving money.
That's right. Thank you so much.
Any other questions or comments? So I'm going to hold off on this so I can get an answer for both of you, okay? And we won't be voting this out of committee this evening. We will do this again in 2 weeks, or maybe even, no, next week. We'll discuss it again in committee. I'll have an answer for you, okay? Thank you very much. Healthy discussion. Please.
Can I interject? To reiterate the timing around this agreement, because we are coming up on a April deadline with this project. You know, these projects have to be fully built by April in order for us to retain our SREC 2 classification. So this is really one of the last projects under SREC 2. I think what I would say, I guess, in support and to try to at least try to solicit a vote tonight is that you know, the city of Attleboro is going to be the largest off-taker on this project, and I think, more to Charles' point, this agreement, this 20-year commitment, and this language around government authorities is something that it's not just something that, you know, this contract is something that has been used by 2/3 of municipalities around the state. It's what's driven Massachusetts to be the number 1 or number 2 developer in the state. So I don't want that clause to hold up this committee. I think the reason that these agreements have progressed to this point is because it's a no-risk way for the town to save money by getting a 20% discount on the value of the electric credits. It's what allows us to finance these projects. And you know, if there are concerns that you want authority to be able to amend the agreement, I think, and you need the city of Attleboro to be considered under that definition, I think there's nothing in this agreement that prevents that. I think the terms of the agreement would have to be honored, but I don't think that, if you came to us and there was a rule change, a government rule change, I think that would constitute warrant a change within this agreement, but I don't think that it's, so I think that's kind of how the definition's written.
But you need to understand where I'm coming from.
Sure.
There's 10 of us here.
Sure.
And a couple of them have questions that I don't have the answer for, and neither do you. So I want to be able to give them the accurate answer before they can vote on it, because certainly I'd like to have a general consensus of everybody in support, as you would as well.
Sure.
So I'd like to get those answers first. And excuse me for 1 minute. Mr. President, is it this Thursday we have an additional meeting that's
No,
called for? Okay, it's
no,
next
actually,
week.
it's a week from Thursday. However, next Tuesday, we're having both, I've called for a special meeting. So we will be doing, we have 2 public hearings that are scheduled. I know that I expect that there will be other communications because we're in the license renewal season.
Oh, yes.
And so you all got the notice and any other legal matters. So, I mean, potentially, if you're wondering when this could be voted out, it potentially could be voted out next Thursday night if you had a committee meeting
Okay.
to resolve it. Or on the 26th is our next meeting. That's really just going to be an update. There's really not going to be any other business. So the next time after that would be November the 7th.
Okay. So there is a good chance that we will be able to vote this out as long as I have the answers that I need to get, which I'm sure I'll be able to. So next week, we could vote this out as well. Please, Councilor Parikh.
Ms. Jackson,
Thank you.
My apologies, and I'm not on your committee. But again, we all have done our research, but I know that the March 31st is a hard line for this particular contract and to be able to take advantage of these. It has been past practice here on the council that we would move something out of committee and then rely on the chair to answer those questions before we take a vote in front of the full council. So, again, I'm not on your committee. I'm certainly not telling you what to do, but I thought I would just make note of that just as a concern for us to be able to free them up to be able to go and get the financing that they need to be able to build this solar energy so that we can take advantage of that. So that's all
Thank
I
you.
have to
And
say
my
about that.
plan was this evening was to vote this out of committee and to vote it tonight.
Okay.
So I'm just going to hold off now until next week. Thank you very much. Please, Councilor Hegney.
Thank you. I was going to say I am on the committee, and I wouldn't support this coming out tonight without having all the answers. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Thank you very much for coming this evening.
All right, thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Okay. Well, thank you all for your input this evening. I appreciate it. I'd like to call for an adjournment at 7:20. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned at 7:20. Thank you.
Standard days. Yeah, I mean, as long as it's not.
Probably a no-brainer. Which we're gonna say.
No, we're not discussing
Sure.
I'd like to call the meeting of the Attleboro Municipal Council for October 17th, 2017 to order. Would you please rise and join me in the salute to the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. And a reminder, as President Cook always says, if you have a cell phone, please turn it off because it will interfere with the cell receptions. I am up here tonight because we are going to vote on the Vice President of the City Council tonight. So what's going to happen is, I'll tell you the procedure anyway. According to the Municipal Council Rules of Procedure, whenever a vacancy shall occur in the office of the President or Vice President, the Municipal Council shall elect a replacement within 30 days from the date the vacancy occurred. The nomination and election process to fill a vacancy shall be in accordance with Section 2-3 of the Charter. The person chosen to fill a vacancy shall serve for the balance of the term for the person being replaced. The Charter, Section 2-3, says this will be done by a roll call vote. So what I will do is I will begin a roll call vote with Mr. DeLisio in a minute, and whoever your nomination is for the Vice President, please let me know. We need 6 votes to have a new Vice President. We need a majority of the council. If we don't get it on the first go-round, we'll start the second round with Mr. Blair. We'll go the other way until we have a Vice President. So that's the procedure. Any questions with anybody? All right. Hearing none, we will start with Mr. DeLisio.
Mr. Cooper.
Ms. Hall.
Mr. Cooper.
Mr. Conti.
Mr. Conti.
Mrs. Parika.
Mr. Cooper?
Ms. Hegney.
Ms. Jackson?
Ms. Reynolds.
Mr. Conti.
Mr. Cooper.
Mr. Cooper.
Ms. Jackson.
Counselor Cooper.
And Mr. Blair.
Mr. Cooper.
And President Cook.
Mr. Cooper.
You're making my job easy tonight. I count 7 votes for Mark Cooper. I see 2 votes for Mr. Conti. And I see 1 vote for Ms. Jackson. Mr. Cooper is the new Vice President. And I would like, if Mr. Cooper would, if I can find my paperwork here, which I have, hang on a second. If you could come up in front of me, please, I'm going to swear you in. All right. Please repeat after me. I, Mark J. Cooper,
I, Mark J. Cooper,
having been elected Vice President
having been elected Vice President
of the Municipal Council
of the Municipal Council
of the City of Attleboro
of the City of Attleboro
for the remainder of this term,
for the remainder of this term,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully perform
that I will faithfully perform
the duties of that
the
office.
duties of that office.
I swear to uphold and defend
I swear to uphold and defend
the federal and state constitutions
the federal and state constitutions
and to oppose
and to oppose
the overthrow
the overthrow
of the federal or state government
of the federal and state government
by force,
by force,
violence,
violence,
or any illegal
or any illegal
or unconstitutional method.
or unconstitutional method.
So help me God.
So help me God. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, Mr. Cooper. Do you get to sit next to me
And
now?
at this point, I will turn the meeting over to President Cook.
I'm gonna grab your name tag, and I'll grab mine.
Then I'm spreading out for the last week. There we go.
I've been sitting in this seat for a long time.
It's almost like I've been
Just for this,
pretending
well, I'm over
over here. Just because of that. I'm gonna
Do we have a whole desk?
Yeah.
I know. I've been putting my feet up, leaving my pocketbook in the seat, stuff like that.
What's in that? You know, it's fine.
Conservation, planning,
Same seat.
same seat.
That's a hoot.
So it's like,
Thank you, Mr. Withers, for handling that. Again, congratulations. Mr. Cooper, look forward to working with you.
You may as well, thank you, President Cook.
I guess next week, you'll be sitting over here, so we'll have to
Yes.
rearrange the voting order. I do want to correct just a little bit of misinformation that may be out there relative to vacancies with the filling of this position. The only vacancy that exists on the council is the Ward 5 seat, which was made vacant when Vice President Denley resigned to move out of state. Contrary to some misinformation on a couple of the websites, the Ward 3 seat that I occupy is not vacant. It's only one vacancy. So sadly, there is some misinformation on a couple of websites. I just wanted to clarify that for those people who thought I had gone somewhere. I am still here and will be for a few more months. At this time, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the meeting of June 13th, 2017.
second.
Thank you. The motion's in order. Are there any concerns or comments? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. Thank you. Because today is a state election, I know not everybody in the city was voting. It was on 3B, 4, 5, and 6. If you're watching at home and you want to quickly get in your car, you have 26 minutes no, excuse me. Less than, yeah, about 26 minutes to vote at this point. So because today is a state election, we are not for the second consecutive month on a regular meeting day being allowed to hold public hearings. So there are no public hearings scheduled for this evening. So at this time, we are going to go on to a reading of the mayor's communication.
October 17th, 2017. Dear Municipal Council, this office is in the process of having the ductwork cleaned at City Hall. As far as anyone is aware, the ductwork in the building has not been cleaned since it opened in 1985. The cost to have the service done was not originally budgeted in fiscal year 2018. However, per a professional recommendation, I felt it was necessary to schedule this service and perform the cleaning for air quality purposes. The expense will be budgeted in future years moving forward. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body transfer $9,950 from account Citywide Reserve Fund for transfer to account Citywide Professional Services in order to replenish the funds for this unanticipated cost. Upon transfer, the available balance in the Reserve Fund for transfer will be $143,412.06.
City Property and Claims Committee, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Superintendent of Public Works, Lance Hill, regarding the need to transfer funds to pay an invoice to Pascal Service Corp. in the amount of $400 and an invoice to Auto Plus in the amount of $53.24 from fiscal year 2017. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body transfer $453.24 from account Public Works Supplies Equipment to account Public Works previous year bills. Copies in your packets.
Public Works Committee, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Superintendent of Public Works, Lance Hill, regarding the need to transfer funds to reimburse an employee of Public Works for his hoisting license renewal as required per contract for fiscal year 2017. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body transfer $60 from account Public Works licenses to account Public Works previous year's bills. Copies in your packets.
Personnel and Human Services Committee, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Director of Planning and Development, Gary Arazian, regarding the permanent and temporary easement deeds associated with the 10 Mile River Blue Way Riverwalk Connector Project. We have successfully negotiated with the last owner, who has agreed to sign and convey the requested permanent and temporary easement instruments. This easement has been approved as to form by City Solicitor Lauren Galvin. Therefore, I hereby request that your honorable body accept the enclosed permanent and temporary easement deed for the purpose of constructing the Blue Way Riverwalk Connector Project. Upon approval, the instruments will be recorded shortly thereafter. Additionally, and for your information, the permanent and temporary easements associated with 80 County Street, voted on by your honorable body on September 5th, 2017, is being replaced with the enclosed revised document. After the vote was taken, the staff discovered a Scrivener's error in the deed relative to the payment to Cumberland Farms for the temporary easement. It should have cited $525 rather than $3,000. The attached revised document cites a payment of $525 to Cumberland Farms. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body accept the enclosed revised payment and temporary easement deed for the purpose of constructing the Blue Way Riverwalk Connector project. Upon approval, the instruments will be recorded shortly thereafter. Copies in your packets.
Zoning and Land Use Committee, please.
I respectfully request your honorable body to hold a public hearing at the next appropriate time for the purpose of setting the tax classification so that the necessary votes can be taken to determine the percentage of the local tax levy to be borne by each class of property for fiscal year 2018.
Budget and Appropriations Committee, please. Excuse me. And Councilor Hagney, this matter requires a public hearing. Would you like to call for a public hearing on Tuesday, November 14th, 2017?
Yes, if it fits in the schedule,
It
please.
is. Thank you. Is there a second?
Second?
Thank you. The motion is in order. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. In a few moments, when we get to the other communications, you will see that I've called for a special meeting on that night because of the same situation we're running into tonight and we ran into last month with on a regular meeting night, losing a public hearing opportunity due to elections. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Withers.
Okay. I respectfully submit a communication from City Clerk Stephen Withers regarding the need for funds to purchase 3 recording binders and the appropriate corresponding record sheets. These large books are used to record every birth, death, and marriage that comes through the City Clerk's office and are purchased every 3 years. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body transfer $825 from account Citywide Reserve Fund for transfer to account Clerk Preserving. Upon approval, the available balance in Reserve Fund for transfer will be $142,587.06. Copies in your packets.
City Property and Claims Committee, please.
For your information, the city was notified by the Department of Revenue on October 12, 2017 of our general free cash approval in the Water Wastewater Enterprise Fund retained earnings for fiscal year 2017 as follows. The general fund, $3,121,574. The Water Enterprise Fund, $1,355,425. In the Wastewater Enterprise Fund, $1,733,186. As you may recall, on April 27, 2017, I informed your honorable body that fiscal year 2017 would be the final year the city would receive a grant payment of $954,132 from the Massachusetts School Building Authority, or MSBA, for the Peter Thatcher Elementary School project that was approved by the Department of Education prior to the creation of the MSBA. All remaining MSBA projects now fall under the MSBA's pro-pay system, through which the MSBA reimburses school districts for construction costs as they occurred. However, this final grant payment in fiscal year 2017 did not coincide with the final major debt payment for the Peter Thatcher project that is scheduled to be made during fiscal year 2018 in the amount of $767,595. At that time, I requested your honorable body to appropriate $767,595 from Fund 8455 Stabilization Fund to the fiscal year general government budget to cover this cost. Additionally, it was my intention to return these funds back to the Stabilization Fund once free cash was certified in the fall of 2017. Therefore, and as promised, I hereby request your honorable body appropriate $767,595 from account undesignated fund balance free cash, general government, to account Citywide Stabilization Fund. Upon approval, the available balance in the undesignated fund balance free cash will be $2,353,979.
Budget and Appropriations Committee, please.
As you may recall, on October 3rd, 2017, I submitted a communication from City Auditor Deborah Gould regarding the net school spending fund. Since these dollars are part of the city's free cash, as promised, I hereby request your honorable body to appropriate $418,626.79 from account undesignated fund balance free cash, general government, to account continuing appropriation, school department, fiscal year 2017 net school spending. Upon approval, the available balance in the undesignated fund balance free cash will be $1,935,352.21.
Budget and Appropriations Committee, please.
As you may recall, on October 16, 2012, vote number 11, your honorable body unanimously supported a cash reserve policy that, among other things, identified 2 clear goals. 1, to establish a target balance for the city's stabilization fund, and 2, to develop a schedule of annual appropriations designed to gradually reach and sustain the target balance for the city's stabilization fund over time. In keeping with that cash reserve policy, each year for the past 5 years, I have submitted to your honorable body a request to appropriate $282,000 into the city's stabilization fund. I am now proud to submit to your honorable body a request for the 6th contribution of $282,000. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body to appropriate $282,000 from account undesignated fund balance free cash general government to account citywide stabilization fund. Upon approval, the available balance in the undesignated fund balance free cash will be $1,653,352.21.
Budget and Appropriations Committee, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Chief of Police Kyle P. Hegney regarding the need for funds to replace current police rifles that were purchased in 2010. It is the intent to reduce the overall cost of purchasing new rifles by trading in the current rifles. This capital project is presently identified in the City of Attleboro Capital Improvements Program for fiscal years 2017 through 2021 as a priority 1. However, due to the recent mechanical failures, it has been elevated to an urgent issue. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body to appropriate $26,657.25 from account undesignated fund balance free cash general government to account police firearms. Upon approval, the available balance in undesignated fund balance free cash will be $1,626,694.96. Copies in your packets.
Capital Improvements and City Development Committee, please.
One of the copy machines on the second floor of City Hall is continuously breaking down and its useful life has expired. After several service calls, it has been determined that, due to costs and the lack of parts available, it is beyond repair. As this copy machine is used by several departments, the purchase of a new machine is an essential capital item that must be done at this time. For your information, copiers are not found in the capital improvement program because they are below the required $10,000 threshold. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body to appropriate $3,317.96 from account undesignated fund balance free cash general government to account citywide copiers. Upon approval, the available balance in undesignated fund balance free cash will be $1,623,377. Please note, there are additional liabilities that will reduce the available balance of free cash in the coming weeks. These liabilities include the state-mandated and environmental cleanup at Finberg Field, Medicaid reimbursement, contractual issues, and needed capital improvement items.
City Property and Claims Committee, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Legal Secretary Allison Wood regarding an item that the ARA office would like to declare surplus, and hereby respectfully request your honorable body to declare the following as surplus and available for disposition. Copies in your packets. There is one wood desk approximately 3 feet deep by 5.5 feet wide in good condition.
City Property and Claims Committee, please.
And I respectfully submit a communication from Legal Secretary Allison Wood regarding an item that the Veterans Services Department would like to declare surplus, and hereby respectfully request your honorable body to declare the following as surplus and available for disposition. Copies in your packets. There's a bulletin board wall unit 6 feet wide by 7 feet tall by 1 inch deep by 1 foot deep. It's in good condition.
City Property and Claims Committee, please.
Sincerely, Kevin J. Dumas, Mayor.
Thank you. And the other communications,
We
please.
have quite a few tonight, Mr. President. The first one is a special meeting notice from Council President Frank B. Cook to hold a special meeting on Tuesday, November 14th, 2017 at 7 p.m. to hold a public hearing for the purposes of setting the tax classification so that the necessary vote can be taken to determine the percentage of the local tax levy to be borne by each class of property for fiscal year 2018 and any other matters or legal matters that may come before the council.
Everybody should have gotten a copy of that letter in your packet this night. Okay, thank you.
We also received a communication from BCWC Inc., 679 Washington Street, Suite 8, South Attleboro, Mass., requesting that the public hearing for the special permit to operate a registered marijuana dispensary at 34 Extension Street to be continued to the October 24th, 2017 meeting.
Zoning and Land Use Committee, please.
We received a communication from Catherine Cametti, President, CEO of Beacon Compassion Center, 900 Washington Street, Suite A, Norwood, Mass., relative to locating a marijuana establishment at 30 Franklin McKay Road, Attleboro, Mass., and requesting a letter of support or letter of non-opposition from the City Council.
Zoning and Land Use Committee, please.
We received a communication from OHI Engineering, Inc., 44 Wood Street, Mansfield, Mass., relative to the notice of permanent solution statement with conditions relative to Area 2, former Swank facility, DEP release tracking number 4-20538.
Copy to all members.
We have a certificate of vote dated October 10th, 2017, from the Attleboro Planning Board, 6 yeas, 0 nays, 3 absent, recommending that the council adopt the proposed new section 17-6.0, signs of the zoning ordinance of the City of Attleboro, with amendments through June 27th, 2017. See attached ordinance.
Zoning and Land Use Committee, please.
We received an application from Moran's, Inc., 95 Frank Mossberg Drive, Attleboro, Mass., to discontinue a portion of Frank Mossberg Drive in the area of half cul-de-sac containing 7,236 square feet of land, more or less, according to the plan. Said premises located on Assessor's Plat 146, lot number 6B. And we're going to call for a joint public hearing with the Planning Board on Tuesday, November 21st, 2017.
Okay, I'm going to refer to the Public Works Committee, and Councilor Jackson, would you like to call for that joint public hearing on Tuesday, November 21st?
I would, sir.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second?
Thank you. The motion is in order. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion passes. That hearing will be on the 21st also. Thank you.
We received a new Class 2 auto license from R&D Auto Sales, 116 Dickens Street, Attleboro, for 5 customer parking spaces and 8 display spaces.
License Committee, please. And Council Pritchard, as the acting chair, this matter requires a public hearing. Would you also like to call for a public hearing on Tuesday, November 21st?
Yes, President Cook.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. The motion is in order. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We received a petition from National Grid, 280 Melrose Street, Providence, Rhode Island, to remove a tree guy wire and to install solely owned pole 1069-50, an anchor to be used for guying on Leewood Lane.
Public Works Committee, please. And again, Councilor Jackson, this matter requires a public hearing. Would you like to call for a public hearing on Tuesday, November 21st?
I would, thank you.
Second?
Thank you. Is there a second? Thank you. The motion is in order. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. The hearing will be on that date also. Thank you.
We received a renewal automatic amusement device license from the American Legion South Attleboro Post 312 Inc., 437 Newport Ave, Attleboro, Mass., for 1 pool table and 1 jukebox.
License Committee, please.
We received a renewal Class 1 auto license from Just Trailers, Inc., 1863 County Street, Attleboro, Mass., for 12 customer parking spaces and 7 display spaces.
Excuse me. License Committee, please.
And we received renewal Class 2 auto licenses from Auto Mazed, Inc., 885 Washington Street, Attleboro, Mass., for 7 customer parking spaces and 34 display spaces. Also from County Auto Sales and Service, Inc., 42 County Street, Attleboro, Mass., for 10 customer parking spaces and 28 display spaces. Also from LaPierre Auto Repair, LLC, 97 Emery Street, Attleboro, Mass., for 30 customer parking spaces and 12 display spaces. Also from North Main Street Auto, division of K&L Tire and Automotive Company, Inc., 44 North Main Street, Attleboro, Mass., for 17 customer parking spaces and 1 display space. And finally, from Tri-Town Auto Sales, 1850 County Street, Attleboro, Mass., for 4 customer parking spaces and 6 display spaces.
License Committee, please.
And finally, we received a Class 3 auto license from Tri-Town Auto Sales, 850 County Street, Attleboro, Mass., for 4 customer parking spaces and 6 display spaces.
License Committee, please.
And that is all.
Thank you very much. Out of my voice, I'm having allergy issues here, so my voice is cutting out. Thank you. At this time, I would entertain a motion to go into the Committee of the Whole.
Second?
Thank you. The motion is in order. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We're now in the Committee of the Whole. If there's anyone with business regarding the city you'd like to bring to our attention, now would be the appropriate time. Good evening. We need your Name and address for the record, please.
Nicholas Calderon, 57 Beagle Club Road.
Do you have that last name, Steve?
Calderon, right?
Yes,
And what was the address again?
57 Beagle Club Road.
Okay, thank you for coming in.
I understand that an ordinance change pertaining to passive recreation at Manchester Reservoir is to be discussed tonight. I'd like to say I'm not opposed to it.
I'm sorry, we cannot take any more testimony on that matter because the public hearing is closed. Once the public hearing is closed, we are not allowed, we got a legal opinion several years ago, we cannot take any more testimony on matters once the public hearing is closed. That matter has been closed, it's been voted out of committee, we cannot take any more testimony on it, on the matter.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here that has business to bring to the attention of the city? Council? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to arise.
Second.
Thank you, the motion is in order. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The motion passes. Okay, the next item that we'll be moving on to are the committee reports. I believe that I have all of the motions. Let me get mine out here. Okay. Okay, the committee reports will begin with Councilor Delicio.
Madam President, clerk reporting for ordinances, elections, legislative matters. I have two motions tonight. First, from the docket of October 17th, 2017, I move to approve the request of the mayor to transfer $53,077 from citywide reserve fund for transfer regarding the need for funds to cover additional costs associated with the special state primary and special state elections and staffing in the elections office that were not included in the fiscal year 2018 budget to the following accounts. I would request waiving of the reading where I read them last week.
Okay, I'll waive them. I agree with the waiving.
Second.
Okay, thank you. The motion is in order. Are there any comments?
This one's actually very self-explanatory. As you mentioned earlier, we do have the special state election this evening, but it's also to cover the funds for Cheryl Perry, who's helping out in the elections office as she's preparing to take over for Mary Ann Drain, who is leaving at the end of the year. And again, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Mary Ann Drain for her years of service to the city, for really doing a great job, amazing job, always. Very professional with any candidate, any elected official, any resident who had questions. So wish Mary Ann all the best of luck.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other concerns or comments? Thank you.
Thank you. Just one, because I know in committee I had mentioned, we always talk about unfunded mandates, and it was interesting, I had seen something from the state, in the House and the Senate, having it pass through the House and then fail in the Senate to get money back to the cities and towns. And Susan Bump, our auditor, actually had said that it could be considered reimbursement back to the city. So that I found that very disappointing. Very disappointing, that's all.
Okay, thank you. Any other concerns or comments? Hearing none, we'll have a roll call vote beginning with Councilor Delicio.
Mr. Delicio.
Yes.
Ms. Hall.
Yes.
Mr. Conti.
Yes.
Mrs. Parika.
Yes.
Ms. Hegney.
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds.
Yes.
Vice President Cooper.
Yes.
Ms. Jackson.
Yes.
Mr. Blair.
Yes.
President Cook.
Yes.
10 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion passes.
Thank you. From the docket of October 21st, 2014, I move to amend section 16-20 of the revised ordinances of the city of Attleboro, restricted use of Orr's Pond and Manchester Reservoir as follows. Again, I would request a waiving of the reading.
I agree with that.
Thank you.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. The motion is in order. Are there any comments?
Well, there's a few comments. This has been something that, as you see, this most recently came out in October of 2014. It's something that we've had public hearings on, we've had neighborhood meetings on, we've had joint public meetings here. This ordinance is essentially spelling out what can and can't be done, what the definition of passive recreation is, and spells out the fines a little bit more clearly. And I'm think it's time for it to be coming out for a vote in front of the full council.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other concerns or comments? Council Parika?
Thank you, President Cook. Thank you for the work that you've done on this. And it is time to take a vote on passive recreation as it pertains to Manchester Reservoir. As we're all very much aware, and we have representation in the audience today, there's a dual piece of business that goes along with that. I would like to see, there's a concern in the, of the residents that abut Manchester Reservoir, on County Street, on West Street, on wherever they are, not just Beagle Club Road, what the impact of approving passive recreation will be. Through conversations that I've had with the police department and the administration and other individuals, I don't necessarily feel that there'll be all of a sudden like an influx of people. It just legalizes what people are currently doing there now. Now that might not, George might write a nice article saying you can now legally walk in Manchester Reservoir. I think it's important for people to be, like any other park, you need to be respectful to the individuals who live in that area. We've had commitments of enforcement so that if there are parking violations and things like that, that those will also be enforced and continue to be enforced. It is my hope that individuals that utilize Manchester Reservoir for passive recreation, that it'll become more of a self-policing circumstance, that people will pick up their own trash and kind of value what it is, the gift that Manchester Reservoir is. We also have to keep in mind there are access points from North Attleboro that don't necessarily coincide with what the Attleboro ordinance might be, and to be just kind of cognizant of those kinds of things as well. I'm interested to see what the impact to the reservoir is, and I am cautiously optimistic that it is relatively positive as opposed to opening up a brand new or opening up a can of worms that we closed, but the lid's still open a little bit. So, again, I appreciate your work for this, and I think that's a general message that should go out to the public that we need to be respectful to the individuals who live around Manchester and be grateful for what we have there. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Deluzio?
I'd like to add, I think that's a very cogent point, Councilor Parika, and as we've gone along with this over this term especially, I've been one who's really tried to champion what the residents have gone through, and I don't see that changing with this piece of business. I think that we still have a lot of work to do to find a sustainable, realistic solution for the residents of Beagle Club Road. As we've sat in a living room several times of one of the residents, we've talked to people here, but I think that we need to continue to start to move this ball down the field, as well as continue the work we've done on the other piece of that business.
Any other concerns or comments? Councilor Cooper?
So I was gonna let it go, but I feel somewhat compelled to say something. And I think that what I will say is that we're probably about 50% there, okay? Because we have two pieces of business, both have effects on one another. And I think we're halfway there. And I think that as we continue to move the parking business that's in Mrs. Parika's committee, we will maybe hopeful that we will get about 85 or 90% there, but we won't ever make everyone 100% satisfied with what we do. But I think that we have responsibility to the individuals that live on that road to not have the things that were happening on a very regular basis in their neighborhood. And I think that this will allow people that have been using it to use it as you suggested, and not have to go through having the fishing license and everything else that goes along with that. But, I think we're closer than we've ever been in terms of getting it wrapped up. And when I first came on the council in May of 2011, the very first place that I went with George was Beagle Club Road. So he took me all over the city to his sort of hot spots, and that was the very first place he took me. So we're getting there. We're not completely there yet, and I'm sure that we'll come up with some parking resolution that will get us, 85 or 90% there. That concludes my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Blair?
I would hope, as Mr. Cooper says, that we stick with our guns and protect those neighbors down there. They've enjoyed peace and quiet over the last couple of years, and I would hope that we can continue it. I think there's work to be done. I know I was misquoted as far as putting a parking lot at the end of the street. I just put that out as an option that night, that we should look into it, having it regulated, time, licensed, and whatnot. I think it's maybe one of the solutions, but if it's going to be there, it should be at the other end, the other entrance also. I was misquoted as saying I proposed it. I didn't propose it. I said that that's something we should look at as a solution. I still believe that those neighbors down there are entitled to the use of their property, and if it requires no parking on that street so they can enjoy their home, property owners' rights, I would not vote to pull the no parking unless I heard from the majority of those neighbors said they wanted to give it a go. I don't think we should take away the joy of owning a home just to open it up to what they went through for many years.
Thank you. Any other concerns or comments? Councilor Peralta?
Thank you, President Cook.
You're welcome.
So many things. I would like to just kind of refocus back to what you're moving forward with currently. They are congruent, I believe was the word that we had used previously. Just to take a moment, regarding the parking on Beagle Club Road, I do have a couple other conversations that I need to have with the individuals that live in that area. I have an open stream of communication with many of them on a regular basis. I do have the expectation that similar to what Mr. Cooper said, it's not going to make everybody happy. And also, Mr. Conti, when we discussed it previously, we had a pendulum swing. They are individuals who have suffered trauma, and so they took extreme measures to be able to correct what was happening in their neighborhood. So now it is my hope that we might be able to swing the pendulum just back a little bit so that they can actually utilize their neighborhood in a manner that we sitting here are all accustomed to, whether we have a Christmas party and someone wants to come over and not everyone can fit into your driveway or to your neighbor's driveway. So those are some of the conversations that I am having with them. I would like to see over the next week or two, as we, people will no longer be civilly disobedient utilizing Manchester Reservoir. I would like to see what the implications are of that. But we are under a time frame because the sundown provision expires on January 1st. So I would have the expectation that as we see what happens over the course, the weather is beautiful, it's fall, let's go check out the foliage, things like that. I would like to see what the practical application is of that before I present new business here to this council. But when I do, I have the expectation that we'll have the public hearing and that we'll move on it in an exponential manner. I don't think it's fair to leave the residents of that neighborhood kind of in limbo. What's going to happen, what happens with the sundown next year. We need to kind of put a plan into place. It may be a plan that might need to be tweaked, but again, as I've said many times on this council floor, they're called the revised ordinances of the city of Attleboro for a reason, so we can always make changes and amendments to that. Again, I have made the request of you, my colleagues here, if you have questions, concerns, problems, suggestions, please feel free to email Linda and have them sent along to me. I did have a conversation with the administration with regards to how the parking lot circumstance has been discussed previously. It isn't something that the individuals in that area are even close to being keen on. In addition to that, there was no additional work done by anybody to move it along to see if it would be something that we would speak to planning, zoning, conservation, or any of those kinds of things. So that isn't something that would be managed within the time frame that we have prior to the expiration of the sundown. So that kind of concludes my comments with regards to that, but I would have the expectation that I'll be moving forward on this within the next few weeks.
Thank you. Any other concerns? Councilor Hagman?
Thank you. And in committee, and I've also spoke to other ward councilors about this issue, because it is a Ward 2 issue, because this particular property and the other open recreation, wherever it is, but this particular one with the road, I'm considering this as two separate pieces with the parking and the open space. And I had supported the no parking with the sunset, and we also will be having a no parking ban with the weather coming up because of the dates for the DPW, that they do put out the no parking on the streets too. For this one, I'm the Ward 6 counselor, and there's 6 wards counselors sitting here, and sometimes there might be something in another ward that I understand as a ward counselor too. So for this particular piece, I actually had someone call me up and scream and yell at me because they thought by supporting, say, the no parking, that I didn't support the open space aspect of this. And I think Mr. Cooper was very poignant in saying that maybe get to the 85%, try to work something out. But this particular issue, in a different way, was in a Ward 6. And I'm going to support the Ward 2 counselor. When the time comes, I'm going to take what you have to say in your opinion. I'm also looking at this open space once we get to the parking issue. I have a lot of Ward 6 constituents that have contacted me regarding the open space. They go over there and they want this to pass as a law to let the open space be opened up. And then when we get to the parking issue and the Beagle Club Road, that's a separate issue. For right now, I'm voting on the open space part of that. Thank you.
Okay. Any other concerns or comments? Hearing none, we'll have a roll call vote beginning with Councilor Blair.
Mr. Blair.
Yes.
Ms. Jackson.
Yes.
Vice President Cooper.
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds.
Yes.
Ms. Agnew.
Yes.
Mrs. Parika.
Yes.
Mr. Conti.
Yes.
Ms. Hall.
Yes.
Mr. Delissio.
Yes.
President Cook.
Yes,
10 yeas, 0 nays.
the motion passes.
Thank you, and that concludes all the business for ordinances, elections, legislative matters, and we call for a committee meeting next week at the appropriate time.
Thank you. Councilor Hall.
Yes, President Cook, there's no business tonight for the Zoning and Land Use Committee, so I would ask for a meeting at the next appropriate time.
Thank you. Councilor Conti.
Thank you, Mr. President. Reporting for capital improvements and city development, we have no business to bring before the council this evening. I will look forward to a meeting at the next appropriate time.
Thank you. Councilor Parika.
Thank you, President Cook. Reporting for traffic and transportation, I have no business in front of the council for this evening and would call for a committee meeting at the next appropriate time.
Thank you. And you're also going to handle the light.
Reporting for licenses, I have 3 motions for this evening. From the docket of October 17th, 2017, I move to approve the application for a Class 2 auto license from Liberty Coach Incorporated, 78 Eddy Street, Attleboro, Mass. for 15 customer parking spaces and 1 display space.
Second.
Thank you. The motion is in order. Are there any comments, please?
We discussed this at length during our committee meeting, and I hope that we have the support of the council.
Are there any other concerns or comments? Hearing none, this matter requires a voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you very much. From the docket of October 3rd, 2017, I move to approve the application for an underground fuel storage tank license from CNB Attleboro LLC, Lisi Irving Oil Marketing Incorporated, 10 Green Street, Pawtucket, Rhode Island, for self-service gasoline, diesel fuel sales with a retail store at 466 Washington Street, Attleboro, for an underground 24,000 gallon and 8,000 gallon gasoline tanks and an 8,000 gallon diesel tank.
Second.
Thank you. The motion is in order. Are there any comments, please?
I did speak about this during our committee meeting. When we had the public hearing, there was a question on whether or not the fire department had signed off on this particular matter. And the next day, I got an email from Mr. Jacoby letting me know that the fire department had issued their approval. In addition to that, I may have made a small flippant comment with regard to Irving Oil and some business dealings. However, I did submit a letter to the city clerk with regards to my husband's business dealings, which are completely illegal in full disclosure.
You know,
There's no conflict.
There's no conflict,
No.
okay. That's what I just wanted to make sure. I just want to check on one other thing here. Mr. Withers, didn't we receive a letter from, didn't the, that particular letter from the fire department be submitted to your office?
I do
thought it
have
was.
I do have a copy of
Yeah.
the signed document. It was
Remember
handed to me.
right after?
Yeah, I think I just put it with the rest of the stuff, though. I don't, it would have been an omission, but I did speak to the fire department the next day.
Okay.
They called me, so.
Yeah.
I also have a copy
Okay,
of it
I don't
via
need a-
email. I can forward that to
No,
Linda.
what I was thinking was just to make sure that we had it since it came out of the public hearing.
Yes.
That maybe we should just include that in the other communication,
Okay,
subsequently, just so we can have the paper trail of it
okay.
complete, so, okay, thank you.
Thank you. That concludes my comments. Again, well, it doesn't. I think this is a great addition down in South Attleboro, an appropriate use of space down there, so hopefully it will have the support of the council.
Thank you. Are there any other concerns or comments? Councilor Hagney?
Thank you, Ashley, thank you for just saying what you just said, because when you first said that, I was like, whoa, she's gonna get crucified like I do. Sometimes when you say something, people think that there's some conflict, and everyone knows I disclose everything, and I'm very careful. And sometimes when a comment's made like that and it's out there, people start thinking, whoa, there's a business, there's a conflict, so it's good to err on the side of caution, so thank you for making that comment.
Thank you. Any other concerns or comments on this matter? Councilor Cooper?
Thank you.
You're
I
welcome.
too will be I certainly will be in support of this, but I think it's, on one hand, I'm in support, but on another, it's somewhat disheartening that the Lincoln School is going to be demolished.
Sure.
And I think we need to recognize that an artifact of the city is going to be demolished in this, if you want to call it, the spirit of progress, to build something new. But, I'm happy that, with the demolition delay ordinance, that the Historical Commission was able to get in, according to the gentleman that did the presentation, and take pictures and any artifacts out. So that is good. But again, we sort of unfortunate, but it is progress.
Very good.
Thank you.
Any other concerns or comments? Hearing none, we'll have a roll call vote, beginning with Councilor Delicio.
Mr. Delicio?
Yes.
Ms. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Mrs. Parika?
Yes.
Ms. Hegney?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Vice President Cooper?
Yes.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
President Cook?
Yes,
10 yeas, 0 nays.
the motion passes.
Thank you very much.
welcome.
Ms. Hegney, it won't be the first time I follow my sword this evening. From the docket of September 19th, 2017, I move to approve the application for a new Class 2 auto license from Raymar Auto Sales, 923 Washington Street, Attleboro, Mass, for 33 display spaces and 7 customer parking spaces.
Second.
Thank you, the motion is in order. Are there any comments? Please.
Nope, we discussed it. We have the public hearing. We also discussed it during committee, and hopefully we'll have the support of the council.
Thank you. Any other concerns or comments? Hearing none, we will have a voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes.
Thank you very much, President Cook. That concludes the business for the License Committee for this evening, and I call for a committee meeting at the next appropriate time.
Thank you. Councilor Hagney.
Reporting for Budget and Appropriations Committee from the docket of October 17th, 2017. I move to approve the request for the mayor to allow the health department to expand approximately $42,000 and any future grant amendments and recycling dividends from the Sustainable Materials Recovery Program Municipal Grant from the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection. Second.
Is that a second? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Councilor Johnson. The motion is in order. Are there any comments, please?
As we stated in committee, not every community does receive $42,000 in this grant money for the recycling program that we have, and we gave kudos to Alan Perry and Cheryl Perry and the whole department for all of their efforts that they do for the city.
Thank you. Any other concerns or comments? Hearing none, we'll have a roll call vote, beginning with Councilor Blair.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
Vice President Cooper?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Ms. Hegney?
Yes.
Mrs. Parika?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Ms. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Delicio?
Yes.
President Cook?
Yes,
10 yeas, 0 nays.
the motion passes.
From the docket of October 3rd, 2017, I move to approve the request of the mayor for this honorable body to appropriate $268,804.16 from Fund East and West Wells at Wading River, other financing uses, to fund Route 95 mains, other financing sources, and to appropriate $65,214.48 from Hopping Hill Dam and seawall repair, other financing uses, to fund Route 95 mains, other financing sources to fund the construction of the Route 95 water main project.
Second.
Thank you. The motion is in order. Are there any comments, please?
Mr. Cook, just on here, there is a scrivener's error when it says I move to approve the request of the mayor. We need to make sure it says the honorable body, if I can have a friendly amendment on that. Mine is misworded. See on the first, yeah.
Actually, you don't need the honorable body, because it's,
Just for
we
this-
just delete the word body,
Okay, mayor to
and then it would be
appropriate.
fine.
Okay.
It would say, I move to approve the request of the mayor to appropriate.
Okay.
Right, so you don't need that. So
Thank you.
I'll take that as a friendly amendment to delete the word
Thank
body.
you so much. And I do say this because I just had something as simple as a stop sign go through, and it came out of committee, transportation, the wrong way, and I couldn't get the stop sign put up because the language is something like this, to have this amount of money appropriated. I want to make sure the wording is correct before we vote it out this evening. On that, I had been in contact with Deb Gould, our city auditor, and Paul Kennedy, the wastewater superintendent, and I just wanted to let the committee know. I know Mr. Cooper and Councilor Conte had made some comments earlier too, because this is in the capital improvement program and in your books that you have had, and this is actually a state highway. This valve has actually been shut off for many years. We currently don't have the looping system, which is affecting, with the valves off, the North Ave area, the water. I know Kate and I were talking about water quality all the time. The water quality, there was a high chlorine concentration. And also, this is a state highway, 95. Because they're doing the bridge work, we're gonna piggyback on their project, which means we don't have to bid on the project at all. So what we are in currently is we are under a participatory agreement. It's been about 2 weeks. The state has currently submitted their permit for a scope of work for the Mass DOT, which takes about 4 to 6 weeks. So I talked to Paul today, and he said it's gone 2 weeks since that scope work was submitted to the state. Probably begin in about November. And the window that we have currently, because they're doing the bridge work, the valves are going under the highway. So the water mains, I should say the valves, because they're at each end, but the water mains are going under the highway, which we cannot touch. So by us being proactive, and I talked to Deb Gould, right now we're appropriating this money into the special account for the Route 95 mains. If anything goes wrong with the project or anything, that account will be closed. I don't foresee that, but just in case, the money will then be brought back. So that way, if there's any issues. So right now, we're appropriating that money, so when the project does start, Mass DOT will pay JF White for their services, which our subcontractor will be Walsh. So the state, it will be the third tier. So we don't have to bid on that. And I know Councilor Cooper and Conte, you had talked a lot about the construction aspect of it, but I just wanted to go more on the financial aspect of it with the budget and how we're appropriating the money. So everybody is aware we're appropriating the money. It's not going to be spent right now. But if we do not do this, this valve has been shut off for about 14 years. If we don't do this, they're doing the work on the bridge. And as Councilor Cooper had said, this is the time to do it. Let's piggyback on it, and it'll be a benefit to the city overall. Okay?
Thank you. Any other concerns or comments? Hearing none, we'll have a roll call vote beginning with Councilor Delicio. As a reminder, this requires a 2/3 vote for passage.
Mr. Delicio.
Yes.
Ms. Hall.
Yes.
Mr. Conti.
Yes.
Mrs. Parika.
Yes.
Ms. Hegney.
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds.
Yes.
Vice President Cooper.
Yes.
Ms. Jackson.
Yes.
Mr. Blair.
Yes.
President Cook.
Yes,
10 yeas, 0 nays.
the motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. Cook.
You're welcome.
That is all for the budget and appropriations, and call for committee meeting at the next episode.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilor Reynolds,
Thank you, President Cook.
you're welcome.
Reporting for city property and claims. I have two motions this evening. From the docket of October 17th, 2017, I move to approve the request of the mayor in accordance with Section 1-12 of the revised ordinances of the city of Attleboro to accept the following donations to the school department. 3 complete sets of field hockey goalie equipment with a total value of $5,593.65 from the South Attleboro Girls Recreation Association and the Rebecca Lind Whitefield Foundation to be allocated to the varsity, junior varsity, and freshman field hockey teams. 35 bar magnets and 1,032 solar cells from community member and retired electrical engineer Paul LaPierre for a total estimate value of $1,029.
Second.
Thank you. The motion is in order. Are there any comments, please?
No, I think it's pretty
Who was the
self-explanatory.
second?
Council Jackson.
Council Jackson, thank you.
Okay. Are there any other concerns or comments?
No.
Hearing none, this matter requires a voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The motion passes.
From the docket of October 17th, 2017, I move to approve the request of the mayor to declare the following item as surplus and available for disposition. It's an 8-foot snowplow. The model is a Fisher HD, and it is damaged.
Second.
I think, was that Coulter Hall?
I thought it was Paprika. This is Paprika, wasn't it?
We did it at the same time.
Exactly the same time.
I'm in the middle. I heard Hall.
That's what I heard.
Oh, that's what I heard too. So.
You're so Eddie Perico right now.
I'm in the middle.
You don't listen.
I'm in the middle.
Who did?
Paul?
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. The motion is in order. Are there any comments, please?
No, there are not.
Any other concerns or comments? Hearing none, this matter requires a roll call vote, and the vote will begin with Councilor Blair.
Mr. Blair.
Yes.
Ms. Jackson.
Yes.
Vice President Cooper.
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds.
Yes.
Ms. Agnew.
Yes.
Mrs. Paprika.
Yes.
Mr. Conti.
Yes.
Ms. Hall.
Yes.
Mr. Delissio.
Yes.
President Cook.
Yes.
10 yeas, 0 nays.
The motion passes.
That is all the business for city property and claims this evening, and I would like to call a meeting at the next appropriate time.
Thank you. Vice President Cooper.
Thank you. Reporting for Personnel and Human Services Committee from the docket of October 17th, 2017. I move to approve the request of the mayor to allow the Attleboro Public Library to expend approximately $10,000 in any future grant amendments by the Attleboro Public Library from the LSTA-funded grant, Mind in the Making grant.
Second.
Thank you. The motion is in order. Are there any comments, please?
No, we spoke about this last week in committee. It's just, the only comment I will make, I said no, but I'm contradicting myself because I'm going to make a comment, is, thank you to everyone across the city, really, that goes through the extraordinary efforts of finding grant monies and bringing them to the city, and this is an excellent example of just that. So thank you very much. That concludes my comments.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other concerns or comments? Hearing none, we'll have a roll call vote, beginning with Councilor Delissio.
Mr. Delissio.
Yes.
Ms. Hall. Mrs. Conti.
Yes.
Mrs. Paprika.
Yes.
Ms. Hegney.
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds.
Yes.
Vice President Cooper.
Yes.
Ms. Jackson.
Yes.
Mr. Blair.
Yes.
President Cook.
Yes.
10 yeas, 0 nays.
The motion passes.
Thank you. That concludes the business for Personnel and Human Services, but would call for a committee meeting next week at the appropriate time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Jackson.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Reporting for Public Works Committee, I have one motion from the docket of September 19th, 2017. I move to strike the following item from the docket of September 19th, 2017, the petition from Verizon New England Incorporated to relocate one pole on Newport Avenue, page 1496, install one new pole on Newport Avenue, page 1496 PB, relocate 4 poles on Angeline Street, P856, P857, P858, and P859, and remove 2 poles on Angeline Street, P860 and P861.
Second.
Thank you. The motion is in order. Are there any comments, please?
Yes, this is a duplicate motion. It has already been voted, and it's under works right now, actually. We're just cleaning up.
Thank you. Any other concerns or comments? By duplicate, there were 2 companies who both have submitted the exact same item involving poles, because both used poles that had already been covered by the first group. So that's why we didn't have the public hearing last week on this matter, by the way. Okay. If there are there any other concerns or comments? Hearing none, this matter requires a voice vote. It's a motion to strike. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you, President Cook. I have no further business this evening, but would like to call for a committee meeting at the appropriate time next week.
Okay. Thank you. Councilor Blair.
reporting for public safety and emergency management. I have two motions this evening. From the docket of October 17, 2017, I move to approve the request of the mayor to transfer $24,856.08 from account 112410000-578300, citywide reserve fund for transfer relative to funding to train and outfit for police recruits to the following accounts: $14,800 to account 1210100-532010 police tuition and books, $4,000 to account 1210100-558310 police uniforms, $5,387.48 to account 1210100-530140 police medical consultations, and $668 to account 1210100-558208 police supplies.
Second.
Thank you. The motion, and 60 cents. Thank you. The motion is in order. The last item should be
60 cents.
$668.60. Okay.
And who was the second?
The second was Councilor Delicio.
Okay, thank you.
So, any comments?
We discussed in committee last week, but it's pretty self-explanatory. We've got 4 officers going to the academy, and we have to outfit and train them in order to get them out in the streets.
Okay. Thank you. Any other concerns or comments? Hearing none, we'll have a roll call vote, beginning with Councilor Blair.
Mr. Blair.
Yes.
Ms. Jackson.
Yes.
Vice President Cooper.
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds.
Yes.
Ms. Agnew.
Yes.
Mrs. Parika.
Yes.
Mr. Conti.
Yes.
Ms. Hall.
Yes.
Mr. Delicio.
Yes.
President Cook.
Yes.
10 yeas, 0 nays.
The motion passes.
Thank you. From the
welcome.
docket of October 17, 2017, I move to approve the request of the mayor to transfer $4,149.90 from account 1124100-578300, citywide reserve fund for transfer, to account 1210100-540110, police DARE T-shirts, for funds to purchase T-shirts for the DARE program.
Second.
Thank you. The motion's in order. Are there any comments, please?
Just to reiterate on our conversation during committee, it's well worth the money to reward these kids and to help keep the youth of today on the right track.
Okay. Thank you. Any other concerns or comments? Councilor Conti.
Thank you, Mr. President. I will not be supporting this motion, and I need to explain why, because the way the measures being read into the council, it seems like it'd be sacrilege to turn it down. But this is an unbudgeted item. We just saw $24,856 cross the threshold to pay for a very necessary fund to get 4 police officers through the academy, and that's an unbudgeted item as well. We didn't pass this budget, and I don't know that the mayor would have put this in as a budgeted item if he knew about it in advance. But what's happened here is that a non-government organization who used to do this for years, and I remember Andy Nebraski debating this in front of the board of directors 25 years ago, and it was a debate then. There's no grant that covers these shirts. They're about $8 a piece. There's no evidence that giving out the T-shirts to the children does any good at all, and that's why the debates were going on 25 years ago. About 10 or 15 years ago, the 60 Minutes did a big episode on the DARE program, and it caused a lot of questions whether or not that program was any good, but we haven't got anything better to replace it, so it's important that the DARE program continue. When this non-government entity decided to give up the T-shirts, there was no other government entity that wanted to step up and take it over. That's why it's in front of us. But this $4,149 would go a long way if it was applied to the opioid overdoses, or if it was applied to other issues inside the police department, even inside the police department, even as a unbudgeted item. So it's important that we do something, but I'm not sure it's T-shirts, and because it's an unbudgeted item, I cannot support this, and that completes my comments.
Thank you. Councilor Delicio, then Councilor Hall, then Councilor Cooper. Councilor Delicio.
I honestly don't even know where to start with that one. To be quite honest, Councilor Conti, as a father, and I'm speaking as a father of someone who went through this last year, the conversations that were started because of what he learned in that DARE program is the first step to preventing opioid abuse. It starts at home. It starts with a conversation. The DARE program helps parents have these uncomfortable conversations that could be very changing and that can change the very dynamic of a family. It's unbudgeted. Okay. It's $4,149.90. This is something that goes a long way with those kids and parents. This is something that the kids wear as a reminder of the very serious topics discussed in that workshop. And it may not be a governmental program, but when you have Officer Day, who my son now looks up to and feels confident that if he had a problem or questions, he could go and find Officer Day and be able to have a conversation with him. That's because of the DARE program. So for relatively short money, for a reminder and just a memento of what that program is and what it meant to my son, I think it's well worth the $4,149.90 for any kid that goes through that program. Thank you, President Corporal.
Councilor Hall.
So I think that what's being discussed here is the value of a T-shirt, okay? And I can tell you that the organization which we're speaking felt the same way. So I will be upfront about that. They felt as though this was something that the kids were going to use one time and then not wear again, which is why they decided to switch to something else. But that being said, I've also gone to almost every DARE graduation since I've been here in the city of Attleboro. And I'm going to tell you, I don't care whether they wear them for a day, an hour, they identify themselves on that day as a graduating student of the DARE program, and that means a lot to them. And for $8, you know, I know it's not unbudgeted, but it's a $4,000, you know, for that amount of money. It's a value thing to me. What's the value of seeing a child excited about doing the right thing? It's basically what I'm going to say. And I think, and like I said, being there and seeing those kids, that means all to me and value to me. So I'm going to support this.
Councilor Cooper, and then Councilor Hagney. Councilor Cooper.
Thank you. I too am going to
Vice President Cooper.
Thank you. I too am going to support it. And Councilor Conti, what you may want to watch is 60 Minutes from Sunday night to update you from what they said 20 years ago, because it's pretty enlightening what they said on Sunday night in terms of the opioid crisis. And I'm here to tell you that the Cooper family lived it. And I'm also here to tell you that two things in this city we talk about all the time at our house. One is the DARE program, and second is the Feinstein shirt that they wear, that they get. You see them all over the city. You see the DARE t-shirts at practices. You see the DARE, when they go on the backs at the Cooper's house, the conversation goes something like this. What does that mean? When did you learn it? Who taught it to you? My kids taught me stuff. I've been a nurse for 20 years, almost 20 years. And when they did that DARE thing, they came home and gave me an education.
Absolutely.
And so for $4,190 and $4,149.90, I am in full support of an unbudgeted amount for that. And it's not, the T-shirt is about the conversation that may get sparked in a household that it may actually be going on in. Mm-hmm. And those kids bringing that T-shirt home may give someone that's doing it, having lived it myself, not me, but in my family, you know, it gives a recognition that to that kid who may say something to someone that may save someone's life in that house because they got an $8 t-shirt at the DARE graduation. And, you know, we can call it emotional, whatever it is, you know, they're useless, they don't wear them. Well, in our house, we wear them, and we talk about it. When the stuff comes home, we talk about it, and I'm hopeful that for $4,000, there's one family that we can get to cross that threshold, the difficult threshold of being able to recognize that, hey, this family has a problem, and doing what I did, and go to the police department. That's what the Cooper family did. They went to the police department, not because of DARE, but because of the problem, and the problem-oriented policing, and the chief of police in the city helped and pointed us in the right direction. So I think it's worthwhile. I've been to a few of the DARE graduations over the year, and Councilor Hall's right. They are smiling from ear to ear, and they graduated from something, and it is very telling, some of the stories, and I'm sure those officers could tell you things that would make your hair curl of what the kids say to them or the things that they see in their houses. So I'm in full support, and that concludes my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Hagney?
Thank
And
you.
Councilor Parika?
Thank you.
Councilor-
I don't have children, but my niece and nephew both went through it, and Emmy still wears her medal in her shirt all around everywhere. And even I teach theoretical classroom for drivers education, and the biggest taboo topic is drugs and alcohol. I have 4 hours on drugs and alcohol. And I know we're associating the cost with the t-shirts, and you say it wasn't budgeted because they didn't know they weren't going to have the funding source. But guess what? Maybe in the next budget that they will appropriate that money, because how can you say it's not budgeted if they didn't know they needed to budget that amount of money? And if anyone can find a cheaper t-shirt source, you know, honestly, if I had $4,149.90, I would give you the money right now for the t-shirts. I am unfortunately on a fixed income currently, and I'm sure even if we had to raise the money, we could even raise the money, but they do find pride when you walk into that auditorium or cafetorium, as they call them now. Those children have pride because not every student is taking the DARE program, and they're choosing to sit there, and they represent their school through the DARE program, and they're showing, hey, I am a leader. I'm wearing this shirt, and I belong to the DARE program. And if we want to talk finances, because that's now a separate issue, what you're focusing on is the budget item and the amount of money, I can see both sides, like Councilor Hall said. But they did not know this money would not be budgeted. They counted on this for years and years and years. Now that support was taken out and put somewhere else, or whatever their decision was, but I'm going to support this year.
Thank you, Councilor Parika, and then Councilor Hall. Councilor Parika.
Thank you, President Cook. I think it's clear that the majority of the council supports this particular expenditure, so I don't want to belabor the point either. However, I remember a few years back, my first term on council, the DARE program was on the chopping block altogether, and we weren't going to have it any longer. And subsequently, because of the timing of things, my youngest daughter is the only one of the Parika children that did not participate in a DARE program. It is a point of contention around our dinner table on occasion. I also made a promise at that time that I would support any and all efforts to maintain the DARE program at any point in time. I see a tremendous amount of value in it, and I have also been to many of the graduations, and it's that you cannot equate the cost of a t-shirt for what the actual benefit of that is. Now, if we're looking strictly at funding, similar to Ms. Hegney, I was feeling the same way. I don't know what the time frame was that we were notified that those shirts would not be provided any longer, but I think that for this year, it is important for us to support it and to pay for it, and then we can move forward to potentially recruit multiple businesses, or we could have individual residents or citizens step forward to be able to provide that funding, because we do have an opioid epidemic. This is a great first step in trying to prevent an opioid epidemic. Mr. Cooper's comments were spot on. That kid can come home with a t-shirt, they might recognize what's going on, the parent might see what they're learning. And we spend a lot of money sitting around this hoop on a regular basis. Not all of it is feel-good stuff. It's usually required, something broke, something blew up, we have to do this, whatever the case may be. This is one instance where I will be able to actually see the benefit to what this funding will go to. I will keep my promise that I made to Walter Thibodeau many years ago, and I will support the DARE program and any and all affiliations that go along with it.
Yes. And I have to say this because I do have to backpedal a little bit in terms of ensuring that people know that this organization that made the decision replaced it with something else, okay? So they still feel that this is a very valuable program, but what they wanted to do is to give some instant gratification. So there are lanyards, if I'm not mistaken, that they replace them with, and pizza and ice cream, which I can tell you, a T-shirt and pizza and ice cream, I don't know, to a kid?
Lottery.
Yeah, there you go. So either way, these kids are winning. I always felt, even in this organization, that because this was part of the DARE program, that really should be part of the budget, and I hope that in the future it will be considered part of the budget, because I feel that a T-shirt that goes with a particular program is an integral part of that program's budget. And that concludes my comments.
Thank you. Councilor Conti.
Thank you, Mr. President.
You're welcome.
Well, I knew you'd all take the bait, and you did. I wasn't attacking the DARE program, I was attacking a T-shirt. And I approved that the T-shirts being replaced with lanyards and pizza and ice cream, because I think that's more important to children than the T-shirt. But you chose not to give me any argument on a T-shirt. You chose to emotionally defend the DARE program and to work all the way around the issue and give every emotional appeal that's on the book to defend a $4,000 unbudgeted expense. And you didn't change my mind. I will vote against this because it's time to close the checkbook, and I think I'm the only one who sees it. And that concludes my comments.
Thank you. Any other concerns or comments? Let's see, Councilor Reynolds and then Councilor Blair. Councilor Jackson, did I see your hand?
No.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Reynolds, then Councilor Blair.
brief too, but
Councilor Reynolds.
it's not that I agree with both Councilor Hall and definitely with Councilor Conti. I'm not necessarily in agreement that the $4,000 should go out. I'm not even sure that the program stops anyone except at that age level from getting involved with maybe somebody that's selling drugs at that particular time. I mean, I equate it with the Just Say No program that never worked 25 or 20 years ago. So I'm not a big fan of that. It's a long-term process, and like Mr. Cooper, I understand. I'm aware of families and all that emotional stuff. The only reason I am even going to support it this year is because there was a lack of knowledge, as Councilor Hegney said. I am all for the food and stuff. To me, it hits better. I would not, if this comes up again next year with some knowledge of it, I would never vote for this, because I just think, I think it's not something, a lot of the church, you're right, that it brings some conversation to the families when they wear them, families that care about that, not every family, and I just don't, I have to agree that I think it's something, if we're gonna pay for it, then you need to say it right up at the beginning and that kind of thing. So I do side with Councilor Conti, and I'm very thankful that Councilor Hall brought forward that the people that funded it even thought it's too much, and I agree with that.
Thank you. Councilor Blair.
I just want to thank my fellow councilors that agree with me that it's a worthwhile expenditure, and that the youth of today, if $8 turns 2% of them around, if something, it sits in their mind. I think it's a great program. And instant gratifications, the ice cream and the pizza, but that shirt hanging in the closet and maybe wearing it a half dozen times, I think is worthwhile. So thank you, fellow councilors that did support it. I think it's well worthwhile.
Any other concerns or comments? Hearing none, we'll have a roll call vote beginning with Councilor Delicio.
Mr. Delizio.
Yes.
Ms. Hall.
Yes.
Mr. Conti.
No.
Mrs. Parika.
Yes.
Ms. Hegney.
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds.
Yes.
Vice President Cooper.
Yes.
Ms. Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
President Cook.
Yes,
9 yeas, 1 nay.
motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have no other business this evening for public safety and emergency management, but would request a committee meeting next week at the appropriate time.
Thank you. I'm going to call for a brief recess because there's a matter I have to check on involving one of the upcoming votes before we actually proceed. So I'm going to entertain a motion for, I need about 5 minutes, I think, for a 5-minute recess.
Second?
Thank you. The motion's in order. All those in favor?
Aye.
No.
New business?
I think one no. Is there anybody else saying no? Okay. There's one no. To the chair, the ayes have it. The motion passes. We're in recess at 8. Call the council back to order at 8:53. I just want to make sure that I had a motion correct, and I did, so we're now going to be moving on to, we just have a couple more things to do this evening. We have a couple of old business and we have several new business, so I would at this time recognize Councilor Parika.
Thank you, President Cook. Reporting for transportation and traffic under old business from the docket of September 5th, 2017. I move to amend vote number 4 from the meeting of October 3rd, 2017 to delete section 10-5.3A, time limited on designated places, and insert section 10-5.2A, prohibited on certain streets as follows. Ordinance relative to prohibited on certain streets. Be it ordained by the Municipal Council of the City of Attleboro as follows, that section 10-5.2A, prohibited on certain streets, chapter 10, motor vehicles and parking of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro be hereby amended by adding the following in proper alphabetical order. Eldridge Street, northerly side, from County Street to Dennis Street. Eldridge Street, southerly side, for a distance of 40 feet from the intersection with County Street. This ordinance shall be effective upon passage.
Second.
Thank you. The motion, are there any comments, please?
Yes, upon review of the mayor's signature of the vote, there was a slight scrivener's error. It was listed as 5.2 when it needed to be 5.3 or 5.3 instead of 5.2. And again, I would like to say thank you, Linda and Lance Hill and President Cook caught this error, and this is really, it's super important. I can share a little small story. On Saturday, the Farmers Market Suburban was driving up Eldridge Street to report to the last day of Farmers Market, and it died in the middle of Eldridge Street. There was no way for anyone to come up or down Eldridge Street for half an hour because we had vehicles parked on both sides of the road. Being that this will be effective upon passage, we are poised and ready. The DPW is poised and ready to hang the no parking signs up in that particular area, so we should be able to see a resolution to that. However, I would expect either the board counselor or any of us to potentially receive some phone calls with regards to this once we see the practical application.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other concerns or comments? Hearing none, we'll have a roll call vote beginning with Councilor Blair.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
Vice President Cooper?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Ms. Hagney?
Yes.
Mrs. Parika?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Mrs. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Delizio?
Yes.
President Cook?
Yes.
10 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion passes.
That is all the business that I have.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, now we're going to move on to new business, and I would recognize, let's see. Actually, I'm going to ask Councilor Cooper to take the chair, and then I'll come back to you. And if you would take this chair, because I have a new business item I'm going to be introducing, so I need to give up the chair. So your first official act.
First official.
Jumping in already.
You look good there, Mark.
I won't mess up any of your papers.
Okay, all you have to do is just flip these two.
Okay.
Okay.
Now,
You just
the
have to
date of the
recognize me.
November 21st. Okay.
You just have to
Here.
President Cook.
Thank you, Vice President Cooper. I just have one motion that I wanted to introduce this evening. I move that the following item be referred to the appropriate committee for study and recommendation. That the city adopt an ordinance establishing a temporary moratorium on the use of land or structures for non-medical marijuana establishments. This moratorium to be in effect through December 31, 2018, unless extended, modified, or rescinded by subsequent action of the municipal council.
Second.
So Jackson.
Okay. Yes, thank you. The reason that I'm introducing this, if you have been following this issue in the news over the last almost year or whatever, as members of the Mass Municipal Association, if you have read their monthly magazine, this has also been an issue. And as you know, there's a lot of the lack of clarity coming out of the state at this point. They are working on it, but there's a number of things that are going on. The key thing is this, the regulation of marijuana establishments. And if you look in the Mass General Law, Chapter 94G, Section 1, they use the term marijuana establishments for non-medical marijuana establishments. That's what I'm talking about at this point. More commonly referred to in the media as recreational. But the regulation of marijuana establishments raised novel and complex legal, planning, and public safety issues, and the city needs time to study and consider the regulation of marijuana establishments to address these issues. Further, it is necessary for the city to address the potential impact of the act, that's the act that was passed last November, and the not yet promulgated state regulations on zoning, public safety, and public welfare, and to undertake a planning process to appropriately address these concerns through ordinances and other applicable laws and regulations consistent with the act. And by the act, I'm talking about Chapter 334 of the Acts of 2016, as well as the amendment to that, Chapter 351 of the Acts of 2016. That's what I mean by the acts. So therefore, the purpose of this would be for the city to adopt a temporary moratorium on the use of land and structures in the city for marijuana establishments, so as to allow the city sufficient time to engage in the planning process to address the effects of such structures and uses in the city, and to adopt ordinances in a manner consistent with sound land use planning goals and objectives, consistent both with the act and future regulations. Now again, I want to emphasize that the purpose of this is not to override the wishes of the voters of last year. Right? The election was in November 8th of last year. In the city of Attleboro, as you know, or you may know, this particular measure passed roughly by 3,000 votes, a little bit thereunder. There were a little bit more than 20,000 votes cast in that election. 11,000 of them approximately were in favor. A little bit more than 8,000 were in opposition. So it's not to override or do away with the will of the people. You know, the state listened to the people, the city listened to the, to the people relative to this. But the purpose of it, as you know, that it's taken the state quite a while to get the commission together to deal with this. They're still dealing with the rules and regulations. And currently, it looks like the timetable that the state is looking at for a lot of these establishments to go into operation is on April 1st. Although, again, that is a moving target. It's moved a couple times at this particular point in time. We all know that it takes a long time for us to develop ordinances. We are waiting really for the state to give us guidance. We know on the RMD some of the issues that we ran into because of, the state changing their mind, changing their laws, having difficulty getting things together. But currently, establishments can go into effect in the state somewhere on or about April 1st of this year. That means that if we do not have anything in place, and right now we do not have anything in place, that means that one of these establishments could come into anywhere in the city except where by state law it's prohibited. For example, if I recall correctly from the law, like within 500 feet of a public school. But they can go in anywhere at all within the city. So what MMA has been suggesting, I've spoken with the city solicitor about this. What the city solicitor has also strongly urged us to do is to adopt a temporary moratorium, to protect the city, so that to give us the time that we need to develop the rules and regulations governing it. As a city, we have a right, we have a responsibility to the people of the city to make sure that when it comes to various things that are coming in, that we have put them in an area that is most beneficial to the city, overall. As I said, right now, there are no restrictions whatsoever. We know what we went through and the amount of time it took us to develop an ordinance dealing with the registered marijuana dispensaries, which were also passed by the voters. So again, This has nothing to do with trying to override the will of the people. I have spoken with the city solicitor at length. I have actually drafted, going back to my early days on the council, I've drafted an ordinance, ran it by the city solicitor. She had had conversations with the attorney general, I guess, ongoing, as the nature of her work dealing with other clients relative to this, and has pointed out the importance of us establishing this moratorium while we're waiting to see what's coming out of the state, and then being able to develop, the appropriate ordinances. One of the requirements is we have to have a specific date in there, which is part of the motion. It's also part of the proposed ordinance itself. So again, this is just a temporary thing to give us time to develop what has to be done. And again, the purpose is to protect the city, its residents, by providing us with the time to develop and adopt an appropriate ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Hall.
Thank you. I'm going to support this, and I'm going to reiterate what President Cook has said. He's a counselor out here now, but President Cook has said in terms of we are definitely respecting, and at least this counselor is very firm on respecting the rights of the individuals. The one right that we do have is the right to vote, and they have voted and they have said. But I think it's also important, and I have spent, I'm going to tell you, at least 8 hours a week between talking to the solicitor, talking to the president, talking to a lot of different people in trying to manage this, the police chief, the fire chief, and the applicants for just medical, to ensure that a medical product that we have bringing in here is safe because of the product itself, not because, there's anything wrong with that. But, so I agree with this. It needs to, and we're just working out some kinks in that particular ordinance that we're running into right now, and I think we're doing a great job. I have to tell you, with all the people that's working on this, we're working as a team, doing great. But the recreational marijuana is a whole different story, and I agree 100%. We need to give ourselves some time, just like we did with medical marijuana, give ourselves some time to make sure that we have a really sound ordinance in place before. Now, this doesn't mean that if we come up with a sound ordinance that we're comfortable with before the date comes up, we can turn that back around. Am I correct about
Right.
that? So, the time period that we're talking about, we can always say, we're ready, we're done, we're lifting it, we're going to go forward. So I am going to support this.
Thank you. Councilor Conti.
Was it Yogi Berra that says this is deja vu all over again?
I think so.
I think it was December or January of 2 years ago that Council Delicio proposed a moratorium on medical marijuana.
December 2012.
December 2012, 5 years ago. And we still don't have a registered marijuana dispensary in the city of Attleboro. And I think at the time I said to you, Council Delicio, that the government is so slow, we will certainly take longer to figure out how to legislate it than it'll take to figure out how to build it. And nothing's changed. The Commonwealth of Massachusetts has not sped up any of its legislative processes, and to think that they will is mistaken. Trust me, I'm a Massachusetts employee. I know bureaucracy. A moratorium, I don't think this is a good idea, because I think we would be better off starting the process of figuring out how do we want to legislate a recreational marijuana facility or ban it entirely. And I don't think a moratorium is necessary at this time, because we're nowhere near, I am certain we're nowhere near getting to legislation to allow it in Attleboro. So I wish that this was new business to say, let's begin the process for thinking about how to regulate recreational marijuana. I don't think a moratorium is healthy for government. I don't think it's healthy for this body. I think a moratorium is putting something on a shelf and putting it away and ignoring it, and that's not what we want to do with this issue. We want to face this issue, and we want to work through it just like we have worked through very difficult issues in the past. A moratorium is not the thing to do. I won't support this measure, and that concludes my comments.
Thank you.
May I?
Yes.
If I may, I just want to remind, this is, the intent of this is more to provide, as I said, protection, for the city. This is not saying that we're going to not do anything, because I agree wholeheartedly, and I've had conversations with others, the city solicitor, with Council Hall, with Mr. Arasian and others, relative to the need that we do need to begin the work of developing, the appropriate ordinances. I know many other communities, if not all of them, are dealing with the very same issue that we're dealing with, in terms of, they know that they have to get some sort of regulations. So again, it's not that we are not going to be able to proceed with that. As I said, I've been in conversations with how to get that process actually going. I was in a couple of meetings today, actually, along that same line. At the same time, I did want to point out that historically there have been times when this honorable body, none of us who are currently sitting here, I don't think, from going back and doing some research, has in the past approved temporary moratoriums on issues that were facing the city to give the city more time to be able to do something. So there is already an historical precedent that that has been done in the past. So again, it's not, I'm looking at this more, as I said, as I emphasized, that the purpose of this would just be to protect us while we're developing these ordinances. Because I'm sure that none of us want to, several years ago, I think it was before any of us were on the council, I believe I was on the planning board at the time, when one day we woke up and we realized that there was an adult entertainment business operating in the city. It had come in because there was nothing to guide that development. The rules and regulations came afterwards at that point. So again, as a student of history, I've one of my favorite quotes is that those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. I've always have taken the approach since that particular experience as a member of the planning board, that if there's something coming down that we can be proactive about so as to protect the residents, I'm all for it. And that was the basis for what I'm trying to do. I strongly feel that we need to have ordinances in place, and I agree with you that the state does tend to operate very slowly. I too work for the state, so on a part-time basis, so I know exactly what you speak and have experienced it. This is just to, again, give us the time that we need so that we don't wake up some morning and find, in downtown Attleboro, there's an establishment that perhaps we think would be placed better elsewhere, and then we're trying to deal with residents who are upset, as they were several years ago when we had the adult entertainment shop. Thank you. That concludes my comments.
Thank you. Councilor Hagney.
Thank you very much. All I was going to say is, this is new business coming in. I'm very disappointed because I've always said in the past, no matter what your business is, whatever, if we don't like each other or whatever, we're all professionals sitting here, bring it into the council and let the council take a vote. That's what my comment was going to be. And even all of this discussion, we're going to have this again and again if this is brought in. And I've said that before. I always welcome in the new business, because I know how it feels sometimes to bring in a new business. You're like, oh, is it going to come in or not? Let it at least come in for discussion. We're going to sit here for hours probably at some point once it comes in to talk about it. Can I use your word? Ad nauseum, okay? So that's all I have to say is, you're going to put your foot down and say, I'm not going to let this brought in because I want to be Councilor Conte, headline in the newspaper, only councilor that says no against the moratorium. So I say, let's bring it in and debate it in committee.
Yeah.
Councilor Jackson.
Thank you. I kind of agree. I just know that as new business, you want it to be able to, this is for study and recommendation, it's going to be discussed, it'll be debated, everything will be good, so let's just put it into committee right now. So can I actually move the motion?
Yeah.
So I entertain a motion to move the motion.
Second.
Objection.
Please.
Objection. I have a retort.
Just lost his shot.
Hang on, we got a new guy at the helm. Hold
I
on.
gotta write it down.
Give him his chance. I think once it moved.
So we have to vote on the
Well, no, we have a motion on the floor that we have a motion on the floor that,
To move the question.
well, yeah, to move the question stops, well, it doesn't stop the debate. even though there's a motion in process, to move the question, what needs to be done is you need to have a vote on that. It requires a 2/3 vote. It can't be amended, it can't be added onto whatever, it would just basically be, to move the question is to stop all the debate on the issue, okay? If it gets a 2/3 vote, then we move right on. At this point, the only thing that you need to, then it would be to move to a vote. If the moving of the question fails, then we just continue discussing it until we're done, okay?
Point of order, did she need a second on that?
No,
I second.
yeah, okay.
Just in case.
I just wasn't
Yeah.
Good question, though.
So, first order of business is to vote on the
Yeah.
motion to move.
If you hand me that white notebook on the floor, I'll show you what it is. Just so you have it, okay? Right here. Use of the vote debate, this motion is not debatable, a 2/3 roll call vote is put in prior to those present. If the passes, I close the vote, okay?
Yeah. So we go back to this one,
So then we would go back to the
and then refer
original
to,
motion,
yeah.
and then you see if there's any more discussion.
If it fails, if it passes, we go right to the motion to vote it.
Well, at that point, you can just, if it passes to move the question, then you go right to the vote, and it's
Is it 8 or 7?
it's actually those present.
Okay, so
Those are those present, so there would be
7.
7.
Yep.
Okay, so we are going to vote, it's a
So the
roll call vote, 2/3 vote,
It's election
7 to
year.
pass.
And that yellow paper, who's that saying?
Delicio.
So the next vote would be, is that the next one now? So that would be that's where the roll call vote would begin. You can double check that with Mr. Withers. Isn't it Mr. Delicia, if I remember correctly? Okay.
So we're doing a roll call vote to move the question, correct?
Right.
It should take 7 votes. Everyone good? Mr. Delicio,
Yes.
Ms. Hall,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
No.
Mrs. Parika,
Yes.
Ms. Hegney,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
No.
Mr. Cooper,
Yes.
Ms. Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
President Cook.
Yes.
8 yeas, 2 nays.
Motion passes. We are on to the original motion, right? We go to
Right,
the-
at that point, you go right to the,
Right to the vote.
go
No
right to the vote.
discussion. Right to
So
the,
basically, it's,
it moved the question.
so like you were-
No debate, nothing, you have to vote.
right, you just go right to the.
Okay,
So at this point,
so
you just call for the vote, it's a voice vote.
we have a voice vote on the original motion as
To go to
presented,
committee.
Yes.
to go to committee for study and recommendation. And this is a voice vote.
Right. So just
All in favor?
Aye.
that's for opposed.
Opposed?
No.
You got
To
two.
Conti and Reynolds in opposition.
So then you have to give the results of the vote.
So it is 8-2.
So the motion,
Motion passes.
okay, so then you have to sign it to committee.
So, you write this down. Conti and Reynolds, right?
Yes.
So we, going to refer this to the ordinances, elections, and legislative matters. This requires a public hearing. Councilor Delicio, would you like to call for a public hearing on Tuesday, November 21st?
Yes.
Second?
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, motion passed.
Good job.
Oh, opposed?
No.
Councilor Conti,
And
Councilor Reynolds. So again, it's 8-2. Passes. And that is it. Let me just finish writing this down. So you won't be able to read. You won't be able to read.
Good job. Good job, Cooper, good job. So you don't get frazzled, that must be the nurse in you.
yes.
You and I did the same.
Cooper, that's baptism by fire.
Table, and that would have ended.
Right. Can you figure it out? Okay.
You've all voted against
we
my
did it
businesses
last-
in the
That's
past.
true, I have my
We
memory.
did it in 2011
Anyway.
over the
Okay,
medical.
we'll continue on, we have,
I would never do that again.
okay, we have some additional items of new business. I'm going to recognize Councilor Parika.
Thank you, President Cook.
You're
So
welcome.
I have 3 items of new business. There's a little bit of housekeeping, there's a small bit of mea culpa, there's a little bit of Heather made a mistake, there's a little bit of I didn't have all the right information. So we're gonna introduce new business to correct it all and have everything all buttoned up nice and tight. So here we go. From the docket of November 7th, 2017, I move to hold a public hearing on Tuesday, November 21st, 2017, relative to amending section 10-4.16, yield signs adopted 62601, amended 62414, and 1317 by deleting the following: eastbound and westbound drivers on O'Donnell Drive at Patterson Street.
Second.
Thank you. The motion is in order. Are there any comments, please?
Yes, sir, thank you. So you may remember, and you will see in the next motion, that we did pass out, we did approve the installation of stop signs on O'Donnell,
Essex and Gregory.
Excuse me, this is O'Donnell.
It's O'Donnell.
It's okay.
Okay.
I'm getting there. Don't you worry. So O'Donnell Drive at Patterson. So you were very kind and gracious and said yes to those stop signs to accommodate the neighborhood in that location. However, there was another motion that needed to coincide with that, would be to remove the yield signs that are currently listed in the ordinance book. So now we need to hold a public hearing with regards to that, to remove the yield signs so that we can put in the stop signs. And if anyone is over in that location, it does say eastbound and westbound drivers on O'Donnell, but if you go out there, there's only one yield sign. The other one must have fallen down or something may have happened to it. However, this is the exact language that is referenced in the ordinance book, so that is what we need to take care of. It's not the actual physical representation of said yield signs. So there you go.
Thank you. Are there any other concerns or comments on this matter? Excuse me, Mr. Withers, who did you have for the second on that?
Hey, Jackson.
Jackson. Okay, thank you. If there are no other concerns or comments on this, it's just a call for a public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
From the docket of November 7th, 2017, I move to hold a public hearing on Tuesday, November 21st, 2017, relative to amending Section 10-4.12 multi-way stop signs, Chapter 10, motor vehicles and parking, of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro to hereby amend by deleting the following: Gregory Drive and Essex.
Second.
Thank you. The motion is in order. Are there any comments, please?
Yes, sir. So, this is not a multi-way stop sign, and that's what we approved. It is a singular stop sign, and the language was slightly vague where we said Gregory Drive and Essex. It needed to be like more specific. So there were a couple of different little things that went on with this. My apologies to Ms. Hegney. I know this is something that's very important and needs to be addressed as soon as possible. But here we are. In the next motion, we will take care of that business as well and be able to move it along.
Okay. Thank you. Any other comments? Councilor Higney.
Thank you. And earlier, I had made a comment about the stop sign that was not a dig at you at any way, because with our administrative assistant leaving, and Frank and Linda have been trying to take the reins of everything, there have been a couple things. But on the positive, outside the box, the police chief has the ability to put a temporary stop sign, so he did put one up, PW put one up today. There is a stop sign because as, the residents had been concerned even when they came in. So I just wanted to let you know it did go up today. So thank you for communicating with me and going back and forth, and I don't hold you responsible. I wasn't putting a dig at you. I was just saying, please, with the administration, not the administration, the administrative assistant turnover, trying to deal with that, a couple of things are being tweaked. So thank you.
If I just may
Yes.
respond, thank you. Ultimately, it ends up in my lap because it's my work to do. And so I appreciate that. And I did speak with the police chief today. I was aware that there would be a temporary stop sign installed at that location. I didn't really want to, I wasn't going to mention that in case he hadn't gotten that today or whatever. But ultimately, it is my responsibility. So here I am. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other concerns or comments? I just wanted to reference that whenever we're dealing with any of the traffic signs, if it's in the ordinance book, we have to make sure that the correct section is cited, and that if it's whatever the signage happens to be, that we clearly identify the directional north, south, east, west. And if there's any signs that are there right now, we're going to make sure we take those down as part of the same process that we're doing, as part of the same public hearing. So since a lot of these communities, ward councils, just be aware of that going forward. that we thoroughly get all of that the first time around, so, going forward. And so I appreciate the work that Council Preker did in terms of working with the DPW to get this, and Linda, to get this all straightened out, so. Anyways, so again, it's just a call for public hearing to delete that part of it. If there are no other concerns or comments, this matter requires a voice vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The motion passes. Thank you very much. And lastly,
Excuse me, thank you. From the docket of November 7th, 2017, I move to hold a public hearing on Tuesday, November 21st, 2017, relative to amending Section 10-4.11, isolated stop signs, Chapter 10, motor vehicles and parking of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro, be hereby amended by adding the following westbound drivers on Essex Street at Gregory Drive.
Second.
thank you. The motion is in order. Are there any comments, please?
So now that we know that the DPW, at the request of the police chief, installed a temporary stop sign, we have 90 days to make sure that that gets into the ordinance book. So here we go.
Very good. Thank you. Any other concerns or comments on this matter? Hearing none, this matter also requires a voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The motion passes. That's it for Councilor.
That is it
Okay.
for me over here.
Okay, just before we adjourn, I just want to mention for next week, we do have 2 public hearings scheduled for next week, which is why I called for the special meeting. You all got a notice of that last week. I believe there were a couple of you that weren't here, but you probably did receive that notice of the public hearing, or you picked it up, right? Okay. We have a public hearing dealing with a pole relocation. Again, the elections have thrown off our entire public hearing schedule for September, October, and also into November. Hence the need for some of these special meetings on Tuesday nights. One of them was a pole relocation. After last week's meeting, the next time that we were scheduled to have a public hearing on a regular night, because of the elections, was actually November 21st. So, given the fact this involves a poll location, which, as you know, is roughly a fairly short public hearing, and we probably wouldn't have gone around to voting it or going into effect sometime until December, it really didn't seem fair to me that we'd be holding up, the company moving a poll. So that was why I called it. Then at the same time, we had BCWC Inc. That again requested a continuation. So it was moved to next Tuesday. So we are going to open the meeting with the public hearings. I figure we will then take a recess for at least one, for probably the Public Works Committee, based on what happened earlier this evening on that one item. Because there does seem to be a little bit of a time frame relative to that. And after next week, our next meeting isn't scheduled, except for the special update we're going to get. The next regular meeting is on until November the 7th. And again, that with no public hearings. So in order to expedite that matter, I'm thinking that we can take a recess and do that. Now, I know you have questions to ask. We also have a guest coming in to the Zoning and Land Use Committee, which has been set up for a couple of weeks, that being actually the city solicitor, relative to some information guidelines for the council to keep in mind relative to the voting, the votes that need to be taken when we get around to actually being able to have a public hearing, close the public hearing, and then vote on the RMDs, the registered marijuana dispensaries. So she is going to be here and will be appearing before Ms. Hall's committee. May also be appearing before Mr. Delicio's committee relative to another matter. So those 2 committees are going to go first, followed by your particular committee.
Okay.
So I just wanted to kind of explain, and then so we'll have the committee meetings, and we'll come back and we'll vote those few matters so that, Mr. Withers and Ms. Alger can leave, and then we can finish up the rest of the other, committee meetings and so forth. So that's kind of like what's going on next week. A week from Thursday will be the update. We're not getting public input. I have spoken with the chair of the school committee to invite the school committee to be here. It is not a joint meeting, but I want them to be aware of it, as well as anybody from the school administration, because it's to give us an update on what's going on with the high school project. Some of you who have been attending the, like Councilor Conde, the school building meetings, or keeping tabs on it, you may have a better idea. But I felt the need for us to get, and cable will be televising it, an update on the status of the high school project. A lot of the deadlines are starting to close, we're drawing closer to them all the time here. So I wanted to make sure that the council did have an update. I know we had one back in March at the high school. Some of you were there, I remember, on that particular night, and that was actually called by the, that was a little bit different than what this is. This is more going to be an update to us, and that meeting will start a little bit earlier. So I hope you all can make it on that night. Councilor Conlon.
Mr. President, I will be absent on November 7th due to continuing education requirements, and I will be absent on November 21st,
Okay.
as I will be presenting tax classification to the Municipal Council of the City of Taunton.
Okay, I appreciate that. Okay. On the subject of tax classification, as you saw tonight, I gave you the notice. The 14th of November, again, as we all know, tax classification is one of the things that we have to do done late in the year, but it's something that needs to be completed in order for the tax bills to go out for the first quarter. The tax bills have to go out before the end of December. We will be in line with all the other communities up at the state. So it's something that we need to have a public hearing on. It's something that if we do not complete the process, then the tax bills don't go out, which means that we have no revenue first quarter of the year. So it is my hope that on the tax classification, on the night we have the public hearing, will be the 14th, that we will be able to be moving that along, pretty promptly, so that we can give the collector's office the time that they need to prepare the bills. There's also a lot of other data that has to be gathered and submitted to the state. Some of it electronically, some of it has to be done the usual way by hand, as you know. So I don't want to delay that. And again, with as you look at November and December, of course, the day of the Thanksgiving, City Hall is closed. Christmas coming on a Monday or Sunday, Monday I think it is. City Hall's closed on that Tuesday, the 26th. So there's not a lot of time really to move on some of this, on that particular matter. So I've been in touch with all the various parties over the last several weeks, trying to coordinate schedules, calendars, and everything else. So we'll be having it on the 14th. So, but Councilor Conde, thank you for letting me know. I appreciate that.
Also, I would also state that the state has really increased its turnaround time, so there's much less of a delay, largely due to the Modernization Act, and they're really, well, witness, Attleboro has hit certified free cash already.
Yeah.
So things are really spinning.
Yeah, hopefully they will. I know there's some other parts of the Modernization Act that kicking in that could have an effect from conversations I've had with the city auditor. We're having a discussion late this afternoon again on this matter. So anyway, that's just kind of a preview of what's coming up. So thank you for your attention tonight, and I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you. The motion's in order. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. We're adjourned at, what time is it?
Give me a copy of that.
9:30 morning?